All Things Real Estate, where we dive into how to manage real estate processes, get tips on building an investment profile, create space for how to build a passive income, and most of all, how to navigate all things real estate. Here is your host, JennyProRealtor, who went from being a single mom to building an empire with over $1 million in assets in real estate. She is our expert, a twin plus one mom, and relates to the average income holder to how to build their empire and grow wealth in real estate. Hey guys, welcome to today's podcast. I'm super excited to share with you. Our guest today happens to be my father, who has been an investor in real estate. Hello, Jeff, or Dad. I don't know how I'm going to call you. I guess I can call you Dad. That's pretty formal. He has been an investor in commercial real estate for over 37 years. So you wonder why I'm in this business. Well, you're looking at the man who's obviously introduced a lot of this stuff to me, helped me with the terminology when I was studying for the real estate licensing exam. We've had a lot of conversations about investing. It seems to be where we connect the most. So I'm excited to have my dad here today. I would call him a professional in commercial investing because he's obviously done it for more than my life, because I'm only 33 years old. So in my mind, he's a professional. So welcome, Dad. I'm glad to have you here today, and excited to kind of dive into how to help people who have never invested in any real estate in general, whether it's a residential or commercial. And today we kind of really want to talk about how to find the deal, because investment minds are always about the deal, the gem, how they can save a buck or two and make a buck or two at the same time. So let's just get started off, Dad. You obviously started 37 years ago. Tell me what that was like making your first deal. How old were you? What your lifestyle was at that time? And why did you decide to invest in real estate?
Well, it became a necessity, quite frankly. You have to decide where you're going to put your money to invest. At the
So
time,
obviously you had some cash flow is what I'm hearing then.
you have a place you're going to have to put. You're going to put your money somewhere. You either put it in a bank, which today doesn't give you anything, or you can put it in stocks, bonds. I mean, people find strategies that they put it into. A lot of working people, they have a retirement plan that they put it into. I never thought about retirement, still haven't. I've never seen it that way. I just thought if you had something, if you want to hang on to it, then the only way to keep it was to invest.
And how did you think you even learned that concept? Was it just because you needed to put money somewhere and a financial advisor told you to do it? Or we're talking 37 years ago. That's a big difference on what's happening today.
It was money management. It was as simple as my dad going with him to garage sales and pawn shops. And he taught me back then that you made money at the buy, not at the sell. And
buy low and make a good sell is what I'm hearing.
Well, that's true with real estate today.
Mm-hmm.
You make your money at the buy. Most people are thinking that you do it when you sell it, but you do it at the time you buy. And if you buy right, then that's the deal. I mean, you know that you're okay.
So when you're making your first not commercial, probably was, I don't even know what your first deal was. Break that down. How did you know it was a good deal? I mean, that's a big jump to make as your first time, and people get really nervous and scared about that.
Well, one of the things that I always looked at on a deal, before you get into it, you have to look at the downside. And people hate doing that sometimes because they just want to get excited about the upside. But it's the downside that will tell you whether your deal was good, bad, or indifferent.
And how long do you think it took you to get to that point of being like, because you've done some bad deals in your career too. I mean, it's all good and bad, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've learned at the School of Hard Knocks, unfortunately, you don't do everything right. No matter how cautious you are, you can't. And you either, you learn, you move on. Sometimes bad deals happen not because of you. You need to understand that there are forces that are beyond you. Some of those have to do with health. They have to do with people. Deals usually, I mean, I've tried to take it out right now, trust, which is the number one thing that you end up doing that costs you deals or cost you money. But sometimes, you're going to end up making a mistake on somebody just because their life changes. I mean, it may be that you got in and you didn't have the money, so you brought in a partner whose wife died. You brought in a partner who got in a divorce, and in the middle of their divorce, which, by the way, I've had that happen too. That was a rough one. I forgot about that. Anyway, I've had some of that. But on my first deal, I'll tell you how I went about it and kind of knew and decided to pull the trigger. And that was, it was a piece of property on State Street in Orem. And I didn't see myself as an investor in real estate per se. Mm-hmm. But they came to me, and I had a business, and I did business with other people. Well, one of the people I did business with rented and had retail space, and they needed retail space. And they came and they said, hey, there's this property available. We'd like to go build a new building, and we'll be the major tenant. And when we're the major tenant, we can bring in others, and this will be a good deal. And then maybe we can expand and do others. Mm-hmm. And so what I evaluated the property, should they die, because partners die, things happen. You don't want to end up with a partner's significant other or wife as your partner all the time. And, you don't know them and they don't know you. It's terrible to have that happen. So I wanted to make sure the property was worth that. But the way I made it sure it was worth it was, okay, well, if I get into this deal and we bought the raw land, we do the building, I have a tenant, which was big. I thought, I'm not going to get into this without money. Yeah. I want money back. And how do I get the money back? Mm-hmm. As things would be, it turned out that they never did the deal. They came and they decided not to come in and to expand their business and to do that. That resulted in me selling a property that we could have held on to, but we made some money. It was a three-way deal that we had the contractor involved, we had the tenant, and we had myself involved with my brother. And so once they were out, because they hadn't put the money in, I had put it in with the contractor who was going to build the building for us, by the way. Mm-hmm. The contractor came and he said, hey, you guys have been holding on to this, and these guys have dropped out. What are you going to do? And he spooked us a little bit. So they came and they said, hey, we'll give you X amount of money. And I said, well, that's a lot more than what we paid. And they knew that too. But I also knew what else was going to happen.
Contractor bought the deal then.
Contractor bought the deal, but the reason why they did was because they knew something they thought I didn't. And that was the McDonald's had been looking at the corner. McDonald's wanted it. McDonald's apparently had approached them.
Is there a McDonald's there today?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, which the thing that's interesting about this was, so I was in it with my brother, which I am with most of my properties. And I mentioned to him, because he said, well, this McDonald's is coming. And I said, well, let's hang on. We don't want to sell if McDonald's is coming. And he says, well, I don't know if we'll ask them. So he did. He asked, and they doggone well knew it was coming. They didn't want us to catch wind of what was going on. Well, and so they tested us.
I want to make a good deal.
Yeah, they lied. That's not how you do deals.
Not telling them the whole story, right?
They lied. Well, they lied to us, and they said, oh, no, that's not going to happen. We don't know anything about a McDonald's. Of course, there's a McDonald's there today, so I don't know how that happened. We knew about it, and they didn't. That didn't happen.
At the end of the day, though, Dad, do you feel like your first deal was a good deal, or do you feel like it was a learning lesson?
No, we made a lot of money, if that counts as a good deal. Did we maximize? No, but what I learned is watch out. The other guy looks out for himself. He's not there to be a nice guy all the time, but they were very short-sighted.
Do you have a real estate agent helping you with on this one?
Well, they needed more, they're a contractor. They always were having projects. They're always in need.
Did you have someone representing you in the real estate world when you did your first deal?
Oh, no. We just did it.
Well, there you go. You should hire a realtor, because that would probably help, right? When you're
we bought from a realtor.
My dad's far beyond real estate agents, but
at the point that we bought, a realtor had it listed. I didn't know who the realtor was.
There you go.
I didn't find the property.
How old were you? And did you have kids? Kind of where were you in your lifestyle? Because I feel like there's so many people out there that feel like if they don't invest soon, they miss the marker. But in reality, how old were you in your first commercial deal?
Well, I'm trying to think. It would have been in 1980. This deal, when it went down, I think it was 1989.
1989. That was the year I was born. So I'm assuming it's probably around like 86. So
90. So yeah, maybe I counted my first deal as my first house because I think it was the best commercial deal I did.
well, there you go then. And it goes to show you had 2 kids at the time. You already had an established family, and you also had an established business with your business that was called OK Manufacturing at the time. And it sounds
I did not have OK
like
Manufacturing.
there you go. You had your Nintendo business.
No, didn't have that.
Oh, see, there you go. He didn't even have that business either. He has a lot of.
No, we didn't have a lot of. I had businesses. I had owned 2-3 businesses by that time. I mean,
So it sounds like you started off by buying the products and selling them for a good price, and that gave you enough cash revenue to get into investing. Then,
yeah, I didn't have a lot of money per se, going in, and at the time, when I say a lot of money, to me it was just because we had saved. And the one thing that I realized by running businesses was that the capital that you have, money, which is the lifeblood, period, it can ruin you so that you don't have a business.
yeah.
But at this particular time, I ended up, I must have sold a bunch of equipment that I had from my business. And because of that, and I had been doing deals. Actually, I'd been doing deals on other things, and we just parlayed that money in. But it took my brother and I both to do it. As I recall, I don't think it was huge. I think we had between the two of us maybe $45,000 in it is all.
Which was a lot back then, though. That's
a lot of money because you got $90,000
almost
on
like
some
upwards of
property. It was
$100,000 nowadays.
well, it was commercial property, and even back then, maybe it was just 30,000 we each had because it was a little over 3 acres that the property was.
Mm.
I won't tell you where it is.
I'm pretty sure I can guess. You said Main Street, Orem, and there's a McDonald's there. So anyway, but how did you move on from there? And where did your love of commercial investing begin? Not that it's a love-hate relationship. I get that. I've heard a lot of stories growing up from my dad about this deal and that deal, and I've had to kind of piece it together and kind of learn from it because
I'll tell you.
Learn. So where did your love start to be happening about the deals and finding the deal?
The deal was everything, to be honest with you. The deal was the life. Doing a deal creates, if the people that are listening have done one, they'll know, because it's nerve-wracking. It's big.
High stakes.
Adrenaline high. It's a rush to get in. There's nothing better than the feeling of, hey, I bought a good deal, thinking that. And it's countered by the worst feeling in the world to think, oh, I've been bad.
Did I do a good deal?
But I never went into any deal but what I kind of knew how we would get out. I mean, that was the first thing.
An exit strategy on every deal you've done.
Every deal. Always do it. Always do it today. I play worst case scenario every time. And the worst case scenario, if you can't handle the worst case, and that is nuclear annihilation, maybe, I don't know. I mean, but it's the worst deal ever. You've got to be able to continue to move on. The reason why I continued to do it in real estate is that we heard that rich people, if you want to be rich people always had real estate.
Yeah, we're still saying that today.
Well, that's why we got in, quite frankly. They said rich people do, and I thought, well, I never considered myself rich, but hey, they're doing it. And I guess even back then, I mean, you have a lot of ambition. And so rich people have real estate. Yeah. But it holds true to this day. I've never met anybody of big substantial net worth. Net worth is real estate. And some of them have been stocks, but not a lot of that around here. We're not on Wall Street.
Putting your hands into a little bit of stocks. We don't need to talk about that one, but that's been a rough road for you too. Maybe we could have another episode on that one, but I don't do stocks, so I'm not really curious to know much about that one.
I don't do them because I don't do them now.
So
I don't do them because I can't. Real estate, I actually control the deal.
Now, explain that to me, how you can control the deal. When you approach a certain situation, what are your parameters of what you're looking for in a property to determine if it is going to be a good deal or not?
Well, it's the most obvious thing in the world. How you approach a deal is it maximizes your return. What's
So
your
the
return?
ROI is what we're talking about. You have to look at the ROI, but every property is going to be different. Some have more potential in ROI, some don't. Where are your parameters on saying this is a good deal?
My parameters were in the beginning. It was just that. Can it double? Can it triple? If we held it, what are we going to do? Because if it, let's say it was raw land is a terrible deal unless you think, okay, I can use it. You have utility for it, I call it, where you're going to build. If you go, okay, well, my strategy is I could build, and then if I build, I could get rent somehow, or then it would be worth something. Without it, land is a hard one just to invest in as a fast, to flip when you're starting out.
Well, yeah,
Unless you
real estate's
have
about a fast income.
Unless you have a strategy. And we had a strategy. I bought raw land. That was our first deal. And we made money on it, but we made money because it was at the time they wanted to develop it. And, real estate, they say, is location, but it's also timing. But it has so much to do with and anything that you do. I learned that there's guys that were going into business. In any business you have, there are people who are making a lot of money in that business. And there's people who are going out of business. So those two things exist. The same business, somebody's making a killing and someone's going out. And I wanted to know, what's the difference between those two? And even if you watch one of these Restaurant Impossible shows, it always seems to be the same. It's a certain amount of energy and knowledge that you want to get when you go in. Even when people just buy homes, if they take their time and they start going out, they become experts pretty fast about where the market should be. Mm-hmm. But when I decided to go in to different deals, I wanted to know everything. We want to know everything about it. I mean, if I go in now and we say, okay, we're going to build let's say we're going to build a store in XYZ town. We want to know all about the town.
Now and I don't know if I can disclose this, but you prefer to invest in particular companies for a reason. Why do you? Because what I mean by companies is you like to invest in the building and then you rent it to particular companies. Why do you choose those companies? Sounds like you do some background homework on the actual companies, how reliable they're going to be, also based on the location. And then it sounds like you almost like to try to get a monopoly on those particular companies. Is that correct?
I don't know about a monopoly, but
in the state, maybe in a state.
This is in the end. This isn't where you start out. I don't think where I'm at, because you have energy when you're young. Mm-hmm. Energy, knowledge is power. Knowledge is money, by the way. Knowledge is money. If you know more than the next guy, I never bought anything. I don't think I've ever bought anything in my life but what I knew more than anybody else on earth about the deal. And why?
So how long does it take you to make that decision then? How much homework are you really needing to get done before you jump on it?
Everything. If there's something to be known, you need to know it. And if you don't know it and you hear about something, you keep your ear to the ground. And I have learned. There's some I did. I guess I shouldn't say that. There were a few that we did and I didn't know, and we were doing it with others, and I trusted other people. And I've learned not to do that. You don't have to trust.
You can only trust yourself.
Well, you don't just trust yourself. You have to trust the data that comes in. Mm-hmm. There, a lot of times on a property, you're going to get a positive and a negative, depending on, you'll have both things that happen. So you want to know, okay, which one is more reality? Is the bad more reality, or is the good more reality about this property? For instance, we went into some properties. I can't remember what it was, but we used to call it hair or whatever. There's always something that was wrong with the property. And you have to go, okay, is that something that can be overdone? One of the worst deals I ever did, I just depended upon someone else to get stuff done. I actually depended, I learned that you have to do things through title companies, always go through a title company. But even then, deals can go bad. And it has to make sense. If, in fact, you get in and you just go, hey, someone's just stupid. Someone didn't know about this property. We've got to act fast. No one knows. Well, that's impossible.
Yeah.
That's usually impossible to find that. And I mean, this idea that you have old granny that had the car and she only drove it to church on Sunday and you come across it. I mean, that may happen, but don't count on it. That's not usually the deals.
It's hard to find the diamond in the rough. And what you're saying is this doesn't happen. People know about the good deals too.
And I will say this, the other thing, I mean, some of the stuff that I've learned, I'll tell you the greatest things that I learned right now, because you might as well hear them. One is,
bring it on, Dad.
The best deal that I ever did, I didn't do. I'm going to say the best deal I ever did, I didn't do. And I think that is just, that's huge. Second, it didn't matter on the best deal that I ever did, I didn't do, because there's always
another deal. I can't tell you.
Always one. You don't cry. You don't need to cry. You don't need to cry. I mean, we just said this last week. I mean, my brother, we say it all the time. Hey, we missed one. Oh, darn, it's the end of our life. That may, someone's going to go make millions on that. It could have been us. It will be you on some.
And that's a good point, because as an investor in real estate, if this is something you really plan on doing, you have to have the mindset of you will lose more than you make. And that's okay, because you'll still make a lot.
Well, you better make more. You better make more than you lose, but you're going to lose a lot. You can't hit.
What I mean, you lose the potential to make more, and not
you lose the potential. And you know what? This idea, when they say timing the market, you just can't time it right.
I get that question all the time as a real estate agent. When's the best time to buy? Well,
I'll tell you when the best time to buy. It's when it deals. You're going to ask me, how do you find deals? And it's kind of complex in a way, except it's the simplest thing in the world. Deals find you. If in fact your name's out there and people know, they approach you with deals.
It's all about the relationship then. So this is a business of relationships.
It's a business not only of relationships, but it's of timing. Someone else's bad timing becomes your good. And people go, that's terrible. Well, you're not trying to take advantage. When someone comes to me and they say, hey, we have something, and I really need to get out of this property. And I go, okay, well, this is my terms, because I make the terms. They don't.
Yeah.
I make the terms. And I say, well, I wasn't thinking about buying it. Well, make me an offer.
Yeah.
And I go, well, okay. And then the other thing I've learned is make an offer, make it crazy. And you just may be surprised, because the other thing I've learned too is when I thought, oh, Jeff, be careful, you're taking this person. They just don't know. They don't see it that way. And a lot of times, because they needed money worse than anything right then, and who knows why, you're doing them a favor. And they'll tell you that. Look, if you don't do it, I've gone to a lot of people and it's not going to happen. And you go, look, and I tell them straight out, I feel like I'm going to, I feel terrible, because in order for me to do it, I'm ripping you off. Mm-hmm. And if they still say, well, no, that I know what it could be worth. I can't do that now. I've got to have the money. Or are you going to be the person that stands back and the moral stance is, oh, you know what? Well, we better not. I actually tried to do some deals with people on that where I said, well, you just stay in. Every time that ended up blowing up in my face, because they didn't want in. They came out to say, I want out. They're done.
You have to realize people don't have the same goals and mindset as you as an investor. And maybe that's the reason why they are getting out. Because I've had deals where I do that too, where like, why are you guys selling the property? What's wrong? Well, their circumstances just require that they need to sell it. Either they're old, or someone died, or they have liens that they have to fulfill. There's lots of different stories.
Or they're lying.
Work through a title company.
There's a lot of work there, because I've had a lot of guys come in. The first thing I'm really skeptical, and they say, hey, I've got this, and you go, well, is there something wrong with the property? No, it's not that. And then you find out that whatever it is, but sometimes it was just that they have a tax lien and they get out, and they're looking at it and they're going, well, you may save me either from bankruptcy, or you're going to have my family eat tonight. And, I did a deal. But the thing is, don't worry about it too much, because there's going to be a time or two when, in order for you to leverage to get a deal that you actually do want, you're going to give someone a deal.
Yeah.
You're not just gonna get them. You're gonna give somebody else one. And
Give you a background a little bit on where my dad's coming from this. He's also been a boss of employees of about 20 people. And it's hard to think about employees and how to take care of them. And so I think that mindset's coming from
it was 80.
wanting to
Sorry.
take care of people and helping their situations, which is something that my dad's always done, is tried to help someone else's situations. And a good thing, though, is you have helped situations, which also helped your situation, which causes a deal.
Yeah, well, there's another deal that I did that turned out pretty big. And there's a thing in a property I call utility. And most investors, especially when they start out, and you'll appreciate this too, that they have a use, a personal use. The personal use for the property justifies buying it. But that personal use, given time, sometimes changes. You don't have to have the personal use, and you have a plan to transfer that over and go, okay, now I don't need it. But I had a particular property where I was buying it for the business, and our use was the business. I wasn't trying to invest per se, but we wanted to buy like everybody else. You don't want to be the goat and the dummy. You want to buy a good property. So we had some realtors involved. The realtors found a property and they told us how good it was. They said, guess what? We found one and it's not listed. You can save, and you can save listing fees. And I thought, that's impossible. How do I save listing fees if these realtors are bringing it to me? That doesn't even make sense. And they says, well, what it means is you could scoop it up before it's on the marketplace. And I said, well, how can I scoop something up before it's on the marketplace? If I scoop it up, it has to be on the marketplace. Well, anyway, some bells went off in my head. We went and saw the building. It actually was a really good price. But there were too many things when I went to talk to them. I thought, okay, well, let's talk to these realtors and see, because this is a big deal for me. If we're going to act fast and I'm going to do cash, maybe they're willing to give me 1% or 2%. They said no. In fact, they told me, they said, you should be willing to give us a tip. You ought to give us more money. And I thought, well, you know what? You're right. However, the deal's not done. And the property wasn't listed, so it wasn't for sale. They told me, well, and then they said, well, we can talk them into getting it for sale. I did investigation. This is where it comes in, where I'm saying you got to know everything there is to know about the property. Come to find out, the people that they thought were going to sell it to us didn't own it. Didn't own it. They had been renting the building. They had an option to buy, but they hadn't exercised their option. So guess what I did? I wanted the building.
Yeah.
Went right around the guys because they didn't have the listing. They didn't have the listing. Yeah. They didn't have the deal done. The guy hadn't. I mean, I thought, how can I buy from your people? They don't own it. So I had to contact him, and it turned out that it had been in a family trust. It used to be, if people way back would know, there was a company called Arbacks. It was a department store, and it was their headquarters. And I found that out about it. So then when I knew, on some of that, I found out who owned it, and it was a lady who had it in a trust, and she lived in California. When I called her, she was paranoid. I knew that also. She's paranoid. This is going to be sticky. And I had to explain to her I was not a realtor, but that we knew that there was a building there and that it was going to become vacant. And that's why, it was going to be vacant. She either had to rent it again or sell it. I said, look, I'll be willing, and we can come up with a price. And I let her tell me the price. It happened to be $300,000 under the other great price. But it required some work, because she said, I can't come out and do this, and I don't know you, and I don't trust anybody, and I had everybody try to list this. But I'll tell you what, I have my son, and he's up in Park City. Well, it turned out her son didn't do real estate. What he did was play cards every day. Playing cards was his number one thing that mattered to him. Now, why does that matter to me? Well, it really matters to me because I got to get hold of the son. When he comes down, guess what I'm going to talk to him about? Something I didn't know anything about. The card game he was playing. I think it was Pinochle or something he's playing. I still don't even know how to play it now, but I did back then. And I thought, I'm talking this up to him. And I got in and I realized that for her, if I had talked fast like I am now, it would have spooked her. Mm-hmm. So you have to change your vocabulary. I changed my vocabulary a little bit, and I told her, no, we're the real deal. And I gave her ways to check that out.
Yeah. Proof of funds. Yeah.
Well, not just proof of funds, but proof that we are, so yeah, that we can perform.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, it took me months of negotiation on this, months. And
You really wanted this property.
well, we wanted the utility of it.
Yeah.
The utility of this
Was
property.
it water utility? What was it?
It turned out to be the building that we put the business in.
Oh,
But you worked at that building.
yes. Okay, manufacturing.
That's
Yes.
the building. Well, we had two others before that, and we needed to move.
Did it have machinery in there? What?
What's that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what the utility was that you wanted on the property.
The utility. Well, when I say utility, utility's use. Utility means use.
The purpose
The
of the
utility
building.
of the building for me was we got to use it, and I got to use it to run the business.
Gotcha.
The building, I could have flipped it. I could have flipped it immediately and made money, but that's not why I bought it at the time.
Yeah.
Now, it was really strange because I lost a friend who, this realtor thought he was a friend. He kept coming and saying, well, you got such the greatest deal in the world. And I said, you don't understand. I bought this because of the utility. I'm going to run my business in it. It did turn out that at the time we did come to sell, we had bought it right. We were able to make money on it. But that happened, oh man, that was 12, 13 years down the road.
Oh, more than that, like 20.
No, it wasn't that. It was only about, Jenny, it was 14 years down the road.
14 years. There you go.
But it took a long time to get this. And how do you find the deals? When I said you have to know stuff, you have to be
vigilant and patient is what I'm hearing.
You have to a lot of patience, but you have to be really aggressive in a way. You have to want it more than the next guy.
But you can't lead on that you want it that much too.
Well, there was somebody who needed a house to live in. They wanted one, and they wanted one that they could eventually own. And I thought, well, I want to get something I can rent to them till they could own it. But the marketplace was going straight up on everything that you could buy. Well, if I'm going to buy something, I figured out on that particular property, and you'll appreciate this one because you may know about it. I said, I bought that building at a good price because it wasn't listed. Everything being listed right now, they said, is selling within days of it being listed. How do I find a property that's not listed? So I thought, well, where would you like to buy to the people that are going to
live in?
Once I knew where they wanted to live and it was acceptable, I went out in my car, went driving. And this is why I say you make the deal. Mm-hmm. I happened to just come across something, and they're not signs up or anything, but you could kind of tell when people are moving or they're doing things. Realtors have to do this. Look, as a realtor, one of the things I've always wondered about is why realtors don't drive around more. Why don't you drive? Get in your car, drive, go out, and you can kind of see.
For those of you listening, it's kind of ironic that I ended up being a real estate agent because all growing up, I heard from my uncle and my dad how much they despised realtors.
Realtors can block your deal.
Value in a realtor, and they had realtors lie to them and try to cheat them out because there's a lot of snakes out there in real estate.
Well, realtors can cheat, not just cheat. They can stop the deal.
Yeah,
if they don't need to. But they can you have to get to the person that realtors don't own the property. So understand that. And if they have it listed, they get their payday if it sells, but not if it sells. How do you get paid? You get paid when that property closes. So in this particular one, I knew I could perform. So I went out, found something, and I said, hey, it looks to me like, this is going to be a property value. They said it is. I said, well, is it listed? They said, no, we're not going to. It's going to be listed in a few days.
Mm-hmm. I said, they get a rental property for probably about 7-8 years.
So I said, I called the guy because in this particular case, the owner, I couldn't figure out who the owner was fast enough because I wanted to do this fast. Normally, I would have gone right to the owner, but I didn't know who they were. And in order to do that,
2017, when the market was really starting to get pretty hot, it got even hotter and hotter and hotter. But
the thing that was crazy about it is, had I taken the time, like you said, to find out who the owner was, it was gone. It would have been listed. The day it lists, I lose 6%. I know I lose 6%.
Yeah.
But this is worth even more because a realtor gets paid when it closes. I knew that. I called the realtor up. I said, hey, how would you like to get paid in just a few days? And they said, what? Well, I always, and guess what they said? Of course I want to do that. How? I said, well, let's make a deal. We'll make a deal. I'll close. I said, I can guarantee funds and I can close on this property. That's the other thing is there's you either have time or money, and time is money. By the way, time is money. Understand that if you're doing stuff, especially with business or any investment you do, time is money. Just all I can tell you about time is money, and money is extra money. You only have a few things you can negotiate with, and sometimes people on deals on a real estate deal to do discovery, you need time, but you want to you wrap it up. This has been known since time immemorial. You go in and you wrap the property up, and then you do your due diligence, and you tell them how much time you need for due diligence, and you take extra time. Why? Because you wanted the opportunity. If you didn't do that, you may lose the opportunity. And guess what? Sometimes you don't do the deal because your due diligence tells you don't do the deal.
I still think about that property because I was supposed to buy it from you, but lo and behold, I got divorced. And you still made money on the house, though, because we turned around and sold it a year later. And you were able to.
Everybody did okay on it.
Yes, but I always think that if I had held on to it, how much equity I would have in that property. But we'll see.
Because it was bought right. You understand now? That's a perfect example.
Yes.
The money that you're going to make is done at the buy. And how do you know how to? Some of the buy is you get what you negotiate with people. And if you know what they want, okay. I knew that if a realtor, 9 times out of 10, he wants a deal to close because even if he lists the property, and guess what? I know this, so I remind him of it. When we were doing it, I said, look, you can either deal with me and you can get money this week, because I think it was on a Tuesday, or I says, you can take time, take your 2-3 days, get it listed, get it on the MLS. You know what? You may sell this within 5 days. Then you've got 45 to 60 days before it's going to close. I said, the soonest is probably 30, because in this type of property, I doubt you're going to find a
negotiation strategy if you aren't understanding what's happening right now.
Yeah. So, you tell them. So I reminded him, and I says, man, I bet you could use that. What do you? I said, what would you spend it on? And he told me he wanted a different car. I says, man, I says you could negotiate and have that at the end of this weekend.
Oh my goodness. And that's a huge strategy to do, is to understand where the person is coming from and what they want, and then be able to negotiate around what they want and giving them what they want.
Yeah.
In the long run, you're still making a deal. And it's an art. It's definitely an art. And it's an art that I learned growing up, and which is why not a lot of people can dive into it and do this, not being represented by someone who has the art of negotiation. But
you know how you know what people want or need in the deal? You ask them. The way you know what somebody wants,
yeah.
You say, hey, if we do this, what does this mean to you? With going back to that building that we were going to get, I knew what she was the most scared of is that she would get taken. And I said, because she told me, she says, I don't need the money. And I says, well, I know you don't, but I says, are you planning to sell this before you die? Because she was old. I wanted to remind her that, look, the clock is ticking. You know, it's inevitable. You're going to sell it sometime. So if you're going to sell it, let's find the best people. Do you want to sell it to somebody who would take care or use it? Well, she didn't care about that. What she wanted to do was, she says, I would have to have somebody who is real, who will fulfill again. And so I just said, okay, we're real. And I called her, by the way. I didn't call her once. I probably called her on this property 7 to 12 times to talk to her. There were some days I just listened to her. Why? Because that's what she wanted.
That's the art of the deal, right? It's a matter of people skills. And like you said, relationships and understanding where these people are, where they're coming from, but what do they really want? And does it line up with how you want to obtain the property?
Yep.
And here you are sitting today, 35 deals later in commercial real estate. What kind of advice would you give to somebody who is just starting out and may not have the cash flow to jump into either residential or even commercial? Because commercial has much different boundaries and barriers when it comes to a type of loans. How can they leverage that to the situation that they're in right now when they don't have a lot of cash flow?
Well, it depends on who they are. The first thing to do is to make an assessment of yourself
Yeah.
and who you are. I had a good friend who was able to do pretty good with real estate, and he never made any of the money. He didn't own businesses. Well, I take it back. He's owned one now, but later in life, maybe two, maybe he did make it a business. But what he had heard was, if I can go out and get some rental properties, I will let that rent pay for the property. And there was seminars that were going around. You could go pay money, and the gist of it was there was no reason to go pay money. I mean, it was really pretty simple. You go find 5 dilapidated properties, fix them up, rent them, and if you wait 20 years, you own them. Well,
yeah, let's talk about those seminars. Sign up to be an investor.
He had something that he knew, and that was he had time, and he could fix things. And he says, I'm gonna take that and I will use that. And so he had a regular 9-to-5 job, which was great. He was making some money, but he wasn't making a lot of extra. But he decided, I'm going to take this and I will invest. And then he went out to properties that were distressed, because he could do that. And he says, I have time. I'll take a property that I get a better deal on, that I can afford. And how can he afford it? Because a lot of times, especially even today, you go to a distressed property, and whoever's the note owner on that property, sometimes it wasn't in that bad condition. We had, through 2008, a lot of entitlement happened with a lot of renters, and they came in and they would ruin the toilets, they would ruin everything in the house. Well, when the banker walks in and he holds the note on that house is a nightmare. His number one goal is, how do I dump this? I've got to find who's willing to take it. Well, this is when somebody like he was able to come up in his properties. The number one thing he told me when I went with him and we were putting some carpet in one of them, and he says, well, Jeff, these aren't very good properties. And I says, how so? He said, well, they're in bad neighborhoods. I'm not going to get great rent. And I says, well, are you going to cash flow? Well, not much. Not much means yes, I'm cash flowing. And I reminded him that. I said, not much means you are, or else you wouldn't have done this. I said, obviously. He goes, well, I hope it does. We're having to put some more money into it, because we're doing carpet. And I says, but you already budgeted for that. I said, I know you budgeted for it. And he says, yeah, I did. And guess what? He had 10 of these not so great properties, and they turned out to be really good for him, because his capital at the time was, he had work he could put into. Something that I didn't have.
Time is money, like you said.
Years. I didn't have the time to go in and do this, but he did.
Yeah.
If you're that person, and you don't even have to have that, you just have to have somebody that, there was once or twice where I'm not good with that, but I knew people who were. And if you could hire them, and depending on what's happening in the economy, I mean, there's TV shows about that. Somebody goes and finds a property, it's dilapidated. They say, and they'll tell you about time. When I said time's money, they're trying to flip it fast because they have an investor usually. And that was the other thing. When you see these shows on TV, the other thing is, look, you don't have money, but people do. Other people do. And they'll know a good deal. And guess what? It doesn't stop you from sniffing out a good deal or finding them.
Yeah.
How in the world does not having money stop you from finding a deal? It doesn't.
Yeah.
If you find it, it's worth money. And well, I'll tell you one right now that's really cool. We have a guy, and he was a manager in the chain of stores. It's dollar stores. I'll tell you that. It's some dollar stores. And he realized, through being like the district manager, that there was money in real estate. Why? Because he knew the guys that were like me are coming in and we own the real estate. And then he talked to them. And he says, well, I'm kind of here in these towns, and these towns are smaller, and you're not out here all the time. If I find a good deal, will you do it with me? And then they had to define what a good deal was. And guess what? It wasn't really a narrow picture. It was, okay, we're looking for land where we know we can turn a car wash, for instance, fast. We know we can do that. If you find that and you can get that entitled just means he's going to spend the time to go to the city, do the meetings, and make sure that it is zoned correctly and that everything's okay, so that someone can come in. Then guess what they said they're doing? They're making him partner. He gets money for that. Does he get it immediately? No, but I'll tell you what, he didn't have anything. What he had, he's using.
So basically what I'm hearing is, you're saying provide value to someone who maybe could be the cash lord in an investor situation where you're either going to maintain it, you have skill sets to be able to add to the value of the property, and partnership with somebody who you can make a deal with to move forward. Obviously, do your background on the investors. Do your hopefully they'll do their background on you, but that's definitely a way to start. And then, Dad, how do you begin to branch off on your own? Let's say you want to get away from the investors. How do you leverage your assets into growing more assets? What do you do?
Well, you execute your plan. You have the patience. You realize, I mean, we probably have, and you're going to hear in some sectors, I don't know what will happen here in Utah, but it's already happening across the country. Real estate is coming down. And it's not just residential. Commercial's going to have to come down too. I don't know if you notice what's happened with COVID, but people don't like to go to work anymore. It's going to be a big reset. Well, in my life, this is a cycle. It goes up and down, just like the stock market. The stock market took a hit yesterday. Today, it's not so bad, but tomorrow it's going to be down. And so in some of this stuff, you're going to have a little patience. Like you said, this is where the time matters. Time is money. Don't think you're losing. And if you look at your property and you know that you did your homework, okay, and you're doing okay because you can make that payment, whether through a rent or because it was your strategy all along, you go, well, you know, I'm just putting a little bit into my property, you know, with my funds, whatever it was that you had. Don't get discouraged if you go, well, I don't know if I can sell it today for what it was. Well, unless you have to sell it today, why would you? Why in the world would you sell if it's a loss? Don't.
Yep.
If in fact you're in it right.
And that's what I always give the advice to people when they are first-time home buyers as well. Well, what's going to happen to the market? And they get nervous and scared. That first deal that you do in real estate is also scary. I would say every deal you do can be scary. But if you know the strategies, like you said, time is on your side. Hold the fort if you can, but make sure you know your worst case scenario and that you could survive through the worst case scenario.
Yeah. Well, I had some people come to me and they said, you know, I've heard that buying a house is the best deal you can ever do. But I don't know. I'm not doing so well with mine. And I says, well, tell me what you mean. Well, I've been in X amount of years and I don't know. I don't know if I bought it right. You know, I don't think I'd make much money. I may be able to get out of it, maybe what I'm in it. And I said, wow. I said, so why are you going to sell it? And they said, well, no, I don't think so. I says, why do you even go there? Why do you say that? Because the last 5 years you've had the use of it. Your family was there. Did you raise your kids there? Yeah. Has it been nice? Is it something? Yeah, but I want to move on. And I say, give it, just wait. But
give it time, be patient.
The other thing is you have to know when you're an expert, you have to move. Well, you have to, how you know how to pull the trigger is because you've been doing deals and then you can pull it fast. And it happens with homes. The first home I ever bought, I walked in and bought it that day. I mean, I bought it within 10, 20 minutes.
I was the same way with the house I'm in right now.
Yeah. I walked around and most people will do that and you just go, that's it. And I said, let's negotiate.
Yeah.
And my wife looked at me and everybody, I had some friends with me actually, and they go, well, you don't want to do that with us here. And I says, why not? I said, I want to do it now. I went in and I found out what the owner wanted was he wanted out of Utah because he had bought a business in Arizona. I found out when he wanted to move. Now, his number one concern is he didn't want someone pressuring him to move twice. So what I told him was I said, well, I'll tell you what, let's negotiate. I will do this X and I will perform when you want. And you know what? I'm willing to wait. I'm okay. I'll wait an extra 60 days.
That's the beauty of understanding sales and sales tactics is when to jump and when to wait. And what is the proper sales tactic to do that? And it's a people skill. It really is. And it's a fine art. Something that I obviously learned by watching you guys learn your whole life you've been in sales, and understanding how to negotiate properly is the art of the game. Now, does that mean you have to know how to do those things in order to be an investor in real estate? Not necessarily, unless you actually feel like you could trust somebody who might be like a real estate agent. Obviously, we're talking to my father, who doesn't have the greatest trust in real estate agents, but he obviously trusts me as his daughter. Have we ever done a deal together? No, but I am definitely far below the knowledge that he has. And so I consider myself a student, not someone who's going to run the deal. So it's interesting to hear all the different dynamics, because I'm starting to hear the patterns from what you're saying, Dad, of what is the art of the deal and how to find the deal. And a lot of it is
The art is you're not a salesman. I'm not a salesman. I like to go get deals.
At the end of the day,
At the end of the day, I tell them that, and I've had it actually happen as we're negotiating, and someone go, "Hey, you're getting a good deal," and I said, my answer is, I absolutely hope so, or else I'm not doing the deal. If I'm not getting the deal, why am I doing the deal? And they laugh, and then I remind them of what they're getting, because there's always a quid pro quo in deals that are done right, and that means what I said. You're not really going to take advantage of anybody in deals. That just doesn't happen. And if you think you're getting away with something, you're going to get nailed most of the time. You just don't get away with stuff. Things actually do add up most of the time, but you can't come across as a salesman to people. You come across as a problem solver. So I don't see myself as a salesman.
Well, I don't see myself as someone who sells houses. I see myself as someone who is helping people get to the next step in their life.
You're helping them. Their problem is they need a bigger home. They want a bigger home. Or somebody says, I got to get out, and this is how much I need on my home. And you're helping them to be realistic in a lot of ways, to say, well, this is your problem. Let me explain realities of what's going on, but then what can we do? Mm-hmm. And boy, when you do that, that's what people want, because you're solving, you're helping them. I mean, we had that in business. I had somebody come to me, and I had to have them buy some machines. And I knew they
had a business where he sold vending machines and distributed.
They had been looking for these vending machines. I think she had received some money because her father had passed away. She was looking to invest, and she did not want to make a mistake. Big deal for her, right? She doesn't want to blow it, not going to get it again, didn't have another dad to leave her money. And she told me that, because I said, tell me, what is your number one concern? She goes, well, I don't want to lose. And I says, okay. I says, what else? She goes, well, I'm being cautious. Well, she was being cautious because I found out she hadn't made a move for like 6 months. We sat down, and I looked, and I thought, I want her to be cautious. I want her to feel good. And we talked. And as we were talking, as she was going through who she had talked and negotiated with, because we were not the only deal in town, there's other people she could buy from. And I looked at her, and I realized something. It's like a light bulb went off. And I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to help you today. And she says, how are you going to help me? I says, I'm going to take you out of your pain. You need to make it. I says, well, we're going to make a deal. We're going to make a decision today, because you've been in pain. I says, you've gone too long now. Analysis paralysis is killing you. I said, the one thing I don't know completely, because I'm not placing your machines. I'm not in charge of all that, but I want to make you a promise. And you have to do this sometimes with the people. I made a promise to the gal in California. I say gal, she was, much older, but I made a couple of promises to her. I said, first, I will not take that advantage. But I told this gal with the machines, I said, you will not regret making a decision today. And if you do, it's called the rescission sale. I said, come back, and I says, I will 100% refund everything that you're doing today, knowing that she's not going to do that. They're going to get out and they're going to do stuff. I mean, the odds of that happening were pretty slim. And the machines, I looked at it and I said, well, they're still going to be worth some. Maybe I won't make money on this as she comes back. Maybe she is one of those just terribly wishy-washy people. But after that, I kept telling people, and I was trying to tell the salespeople too, look, outside of selling.
I like it. I like that you don't call yourself a salesperson, Dad. You're definitely a salesperson.
Well, they do. No, I was never. In fact, that was my line. I actually told people that I'm not a salesperson.
Oh, that's a sales tactic. I'll just tell you that.
Okay. I know, but you have to, but people don't want to think that as soon as someone has a salesperson, what they have is this idea that there's somebody who bested them, that somebody was better than them. Nobody wants to think that they went into a deal and they the other guy took it, he got the better deal. I didn't negotiate as well. I'm not as smart. I wasn't as good at negotiating. I'm not as bold. No one wants to feel that way. You have to, you make them feel good. Yeah. So I told this gal, she said, I said, make the decision. I says, I'll make it for you. In this case, I was really bold. I just said, I'm making it for you. Let's write it up right now. I says, I'm going to write it up. I want you to sign it. And I says, I'll hold it. I want you to see how you feel about it once you've done it. Oh my gosh, she felt wonderful. She signed the paper, did it. And she says, you're right. She says, you've lifted a ton of bricks off my shoulders. This has been so hard and difficult. And I said, I know. I said, it is so, and you need to understand that when you're dealing with other people, they're so scared. They don't want to get taken, but they want to feel like somebody. And then with the realtor in particular, Jenny, you're good with this, to let them know and to say, hey, I'm here. What's a realtor do? Well, I'm have your back.
50% of my business is to be a therapist. So yes.
It's supposed to be there. I'm there. Guess what? I'm here and I'll listen to you. And I'm gonna prove to you I listened. The other thing is with sales, you want to say that they do that. But we always said that if you're going to be a salesman, I've talked a lot now. The number one thing you do as a salesman is what? Listen.
Ken Garf. That's what comes to mind.
I listen for hours to people. I mean, I would sit and listen and listen. But you want to be with it. You can't sleep. You got to be. That's the energy. You have to be on it, and then you have to let them know you heard. And so, that's the communication thing. I would say, well, let me see.
What I'm hearing, because I'm listening, is what I do, is if you do want to be your own solo investor in real estate and not have someone on your wingman like a real estate agent like me, you need to really be someone who is interested in people and their situations and making the deal happen based on the relationship that you're making the deal with. Because yes, numbers will tell you a story and the numbers are going to bring you to the property. But at the end of the day, it's the relationship that's going to make the deal.
Yeah, for the most part. But I'll even go back with realtors. The fact is I said you need to know what your strengths are. Sometimes the realtor has the strength you don't. And that strength is sometimes people just don't have, they don't have the time. They're not going to take the time to research. Maybe someone's in the hospital. Maybe their child's in the hospital, whatever it is. But if they find a real estate agent that they can trust that has had that, and it will explain things to them really well, and then they know, that's invaluable. That is worth just as much as what my friend had when he said he could fix things at the house. What? I mean, some realtors, I've known realtors that have made a lot of people rich. Because the realtors, in order for the realtor to get rich, he needed to make the client rich, right? And that was the business I was in.
I must really love what I do when I know that I was back against some people who thought real estate agents were a waste of time. So I definitely proven myself to major investors in my family that I may not know everything that they know, but I definitely can provide value for those who are learning and wanting to grow in the investing world, because I have been up against some hard knocks, such as my father, for a good reason. So.
Yeah, there was one other thing there that to mention to you that people get into with analysis paralysis. And that is they're so scared. Was the other guy, when I say they don't want to get bested, they're worried about what he's making. And I think at a certain point in time, you have to be a narcissist, I guess, to think you're the best. But you go, look, what does it matter? What does it matter? Let's say you did a good deal for you. It's the best thing I've ever done.
I just had this conversation the other day for my clients with another agent, and we kind of butted heads a little bit, and the deal didn't end up going through. But he told me, we had a deal on the table and we were ready to move forward. And he said he had 4 other offers, but he wanted to entertain us because of the type of buyer that we were. And then he said he got a pending appraisal on his property, and the significant difference was about $400,000, and wanted to see if I wanted to move my price up. I said, no. So, I said, look, I don't care about your appraisal. I'm giving you an offer right now, and I'm defining what the demand is giving you. Well, the property's still for sale, and there's no offers because they passed up 4 offers on the deal. Sad to be known. You got to be working with the right realtor and the right communication when it comes down to.
But the deal's not done then. That deal's not done. It may come back.
Oh, no, I will come back in a week and see how it's going.
And see how it goes, because it has to be good for you. But what I'm saying, let's say that it was the best deal in the world for the other person, and they're going to make $1 million. But you're still going to make good money on it. Don't let that stop you from doing the deal. Oh, geez, he's making a lot of money. I don't care. What I care was about me at the certain point in time. You have to go, does this work for me? And that's what you did. Does it work for my client the opposite way? If it doesn't, and this is how I do so many deals. I did go to him and I said, you don't understand. I wasn't looking for this property.
Yeah.
I want you to take, I know. Oh, well, don't you want it?
Approached me. Yeah.
And I said, well, yeah, I'll take it at a certain, well, what's the price? Because we need to move. And that's a matter of reputation too. They'll come to you after a time if they know you can do deals. But a lot
Well, I
of
want to bring up
people.
something a little bit different, Dad. Now that we say that we're established, you've been down the road 37 years in investing in real estate. Now you have the opportunity.
35. I found out 35. We'll say.
Oh, okay. Sorry, we messaged your brother Kurt. 35 years in commercial real estate. Now you have the opportunity where you've expanded your profile. You only invest in particular properties and only in particular areas that you're looking for and understand. You've done deals with certain relationships. You've been able to expand your profile where now you are a lender and you can lend money and assets out. And that's a whole nother ballpark in itself. But again, it all comes down to the same concepts, I believe, that what you're saying. The relationship, does the deal make sense? And am I helping someone in their situation? This is the beauty of becoming an investor. When you invest in real estate, the skies are the limit and you can really open up doors. And I've seen this, but here's the thing. If you are going to invest in real estate, and I know that my dad's going to chime on this, I should point like this, be prepared for the worst case scenario sometimes. So I want to lead up to this question, Dad. Now that you are actually a lender as well, you also are still investing. You still talk deals. I still hear about deals happening that left and right all the time. And I feel honored that sometimes you call me and ask me for advice on if you should do a deal based on the market, and I give you my advice. But looking at this situation on doing deals, I just lost my train of thought on where I was going with this. What advice can you give to those who are starting small and being able to move forward and grow on staying focused? Can they stay focused, or would you prefer that they should broaden their horizons? You own multiple companies. You're an investor in companies. You're an investor in individual family situations. I mean,
You have to use what you have. Like I say, when I was younger, I had a lot more energy. My brother still does.
Anymore.
My brother still has a ton of energy for this, and he's excited, and he wants to know everything there is to know about the deals. I trust him now because we've been in business a long time. That's good to get a partner. But understand what I said. You don't have to take all the money. You have to find a deal. You can find people with money. Also, the other biggest mistake that I saw that some people made when they came to me and they wanted money, they didn't respect the money. They absolutely did not. Our deal of providing money was the least essential thing to them at the time because they thought they had the world, whatever. I had a guy come to me, a number, I won't tell you. Anyway, different products that they're going to move in the marketplace. And I said, well, I'll give you the money, but it's going to be this terms like you were doing. And they scoffed. And I said, well, I'll tell you the difference between doing it with me is the deal will get done and you can have some money versus none. Well, I had some people that came in and I had, in one deal, it was doctors and dentists that were involved. They put a lot of money into it. And I said, look, I could try to help you out with this, but I'm worried about one aspect of your product with some product liability. And they came back and scoffed and says, oh, you don't know. Everybody thinks that they're, whatever it is that they're doing. This was the other thing, is to stop thinking that everything that you've done is perfect, that everything happens the way you envision it when you have an idea. Geez, I guess you got to get started when you're young because you need to have
energy.
To get into these, you need to fail so that you understand that. But understand that if you're going to come to a guy with money, guess what he had to do? He had to go out and he had to find a deal somewhere himself. He had to get in and he had to work that. Something happened. He either did a business, he did something for that money. Now he's taxed on the money. So now he's made it, he's taxed it, and he has it. You're asking for it, and you come in and you disrespect the guy who can do that. Now ask people a lot of times that are successful with money, they don't begrudge somebody else making money. Yeah. So you have to ask them what they want, but don't do this. I've had some people come in and they think that if they come and they do certain things, the deal happens, and that's not true. How a deal happens is when two people come together. And it takes an agreement, right? That agreement, once it's reached and fulfilled, and the reason why this matters is what I said before. You can't go in, you're not going to best somebody in a deal. Why? Because it takes two to do it. You want the guy you did the deal with to think hey, they had to do the best deal they've ever done too. You got to think, hey, you're so lucky. This just happened to work out for both of us. And that's how it needs to be at the end of the day. You go, hey, this worked out for both of us. It doesn't always do that, but what happens after the deal is you don't control. I don't control everything. And guess what? I don't feel too bad. I mean, we've done some where I go, oh, geez, we gave money out on a number of deals that we protected ourselves. We protect ourselves because I'm risk adverse. I just don't need the risk. Why would
you can be in the investing world, being risk averse, but yet knowing your worst case scenario. Well, Dad, I really appreciate you being on today and kind of divulging some secrets and some things that you have been doing. Obviously, he's been very quiet about how he does his deals in my lifetime, and that's obviously for a very good legal reason. If you could give any advice on somebody who is, that's not what I want to ask. I want to ask, what's the next step for you? Breaking down, are you done with investing in real estate? Are you going to keep going? Obviously, you don't work a 9-to-5 job. You wake up in the morning and you set your own schedule every day, and that is the freedom of being an investor in real estate. It is now a full-fledged business for you. Multiple businesses, multiple different types of LLCs, and protecting yourself legally in different ways, and lots of different strategies you've had to learn along the way. But are you done, or are you going to continue investing in real estate? And you are, like you said, the energy has slowed down, or are you still having the bug of the deal?
I'll do a good deal anytime I see one.
And there you go.
I don't look as much. I'm not as active trying to look. I don't. It's a matter of I don't need on your needs. But the advice I would give somebody is get started. The worst mistake. Now understand how if I'm in real estate and you're doing anything in real estate, somebody is getting some money. If they're charging rent, they're getting the money. If they're charging rent, that means that they're somehow paying for something that you paid for. Find out, and the worst mistake you can make is to get into something and you go, well, 10, 15 years down the road, I had some pride. I didn't go to so-and-so. This is the other thing. Stop your pride. If you go, okay, I don't want so-and-so to, think they have money. Look, if there's a better deal that you can get a better house, for heaven's sakes, go do it. Go get the house that is, your utility, this stuff works out. And you'll know it because if you involve another person, you've got another set of eyes on it. It's not that bad to have. So get started. Make sure you get in. You got to get in. At least figure out ways to do it. And how you do that is, it's just a matter of desire. And you say, hey, that's what I want. You think about it. And you'll find a house. You'll get in it. But you stop worrying about some of the stuff, like I say, with everything. The world's not out to get you. It just works a certain way. And so don't be that person who says, oh, the market crashes right now, so I can't do it. Let me tell you, there's no better time to do this than when the market's crashing.
That's what I've been trying to tell everybody.
The market's going to crash.
Don't be worried about the increase of in interest rates right now as an investor. It's definitely a perfect opportunity to jump into the market because you have a lot of wiggle room for negotiation.
I'll give you a little hint about stocks. There's a lot of companies that have been around a long time. Some, maybe 100 years, they say. I try to look at one we're doing now. I think the company's been around 60 years. But the actual land, the real estate, outside of a building, you say crumbling, but the actual property, it's been there long before you were, and it will be there long after you go. You might as well get in.
Or not.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, whether you have a part of it while you're alive or not. I mean, you might as well get in and see what you can do.
Well, I appreciate, Dad, all the advice and knowledge of wealth that you've given us. And hopefully we'll have another episode next time, maybe talking more about, how you continue to leverage. If you want to learn more about how to begin to start investing in real estate when you don't have any cash flow or you don't want to use someone as an investor, I have other podcasts on that as well. Also on how to leverage from one property to the next property, which is something I learned particularly from my father, and that is using an asset to buy another asset. Those are all in the other podcasts I have it on as well. Go ahead and check those out. I believe it's episode 2 and 3. But thank you, Dad, so much for all of us here listening. We are grateful for your wealth of knowledge, and we will continue to do deals, and I'll continue to watch you do deals for the rest of my life. So appreciate you, Dad, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks
All
so
right,
much.
thanks, hon.